Commit to gather together in person because God promises to be in our midst.
As you hear that, is there a specific story or person from 2023 that comes to mind?
Several stories, several people, but one in particular would have to be that of Cheryl and Leonard Bennett.
So on September 2nd, 2022, I found out that I was pregnant with my third child. The time we had two daughters, 3 and a 2-year-old. And that afternoon, I received the call from my radiologist that the biopsy of my breast that had just been performed a few days earlier came back positive for breast cancer. I hung up with her. Obviously, I was distraught. My daughters were right there playing in the sand. My husband was there. It was very difficult. We had many doctor's appointments, and every single one of them started with, you should terminate your pregnancy to give yourself the best chances of survival. I think it was September 18th or somewhere around that time, 2022. And it was back to church Sunday, and everybody was called to invite a friend or someone to church. And so I went and I found Sister Conry, who was working the prayer ministry table, and I said, I need prayer. And she encouraged me, and then this is one of those things where you know that it's just God working it out. She said, well, you know, you definitely do need prayer in this moment, and I will put your name on the list for the prayer ministry to be praying for you, but I want a minister in this church to pray for you right now. And she literally just turned around and saw Reverend Erica and said, oh, Reverend Erica, you're here. Could you come and pray for our sister? And it's perfect because you, Reverend Erica, are pregnant as well. And as she said that, Reverend Erica came over and Sister Conry, discreetly explained to her what was going on. And I was crying because it was a difficult time. And Reverend Erica looked at me, and I'll never forget, she said, maybe this is a good time for me to tell you about the cancer diagnosis that came when I was at the beginning of my pregnancy. And I said, this can't be. I mean, how many people get diagnosed with breast cancer while they're pregnant? And I remember Sister Conry just kind of, going back, kind of, wow, this is a moment that only God could have orchestrated.
Met them one Sunday, I believe it was back to church Sunday of last year, actually. Sister Conry called me. She said, Rev Erica, I need you to come and join me to pray with this couple. And I walk over with my pregnant self, and I begin to hear what we're praying about. And so many of the dynamics that they were facing, we had faced. We being Russell and I together in this journey. January 20th, 2022, I got a diagnosis of cancer, breast cancer, very early stage. And I remember the shock and the awe and the wow. We proceeded to meet with the oncologist, scheduled surgery for March 23rd of 2022. And on that first weekend of the month, I usually take off. I don't see clients that first weekend. I said, hey, before surgery, we should get together and do a couples weekend before we enter this land of surgery and treatment and all this stuff. We go to this weekend away, and my period is late. And I'm like, it's probably stress. It's gotta be the stress of surgery coming in a few weeks. We take a pregnancy test, and hey, guess what? Yes, you have cancer, and you also are pregnant with a baby. How are we doing this, God? And so fast forward to that moment in the vestibule of the church, realizing that God had sustained our faith and that God had connected us in that moment with the Bennetts. By that point, we were about 7 months or so along, I believe it was. And so visibly pregnant. My belly was resting upon Cheryl's belly as we prayed. And my prayer faith in that moment was that God would allow our babies not only to thrive, but to get to meet each other, to get to fellowship one with another, to get to share what it is to have been in a similar journey at a similar time. And our relationship has continued to blossom since then.
The one moment that I do want to highlight was when, as she was getting the surgery, that they had to put her under for, Caleb was still in her belly. Mm-hmm. And I remember the moment when they woke her up, and trying to find a heartbeat. Yeah. And because of several other things they couldn't. From my perspective, it was a lot because we've had 2 losses between Karis, who's awesome, and Caleb, who's awesome. And I remember in that moment just calling on God and expecting that something was going to shift.
I remember coming to after surgery, and I remember feeling them on my belly, trying to hear baby's heartbeat. And I remember saying, God, if I don't hear a heartbeat, I don't want to wake up. And then I remember opening my eyes to the doctor who found the baby's heartbeat. And that was the same doctor who, when I called, when I was losing the second lost pregnancy, it was that doctor who was now confirming this baby's heartbeat.
We used to call him Little Heartbeat because that was a resounding reminder of God's faithfulness.
I remember telling my doctor after we found out that the cancer had spread to my bones, and she made one more plea and said, I really think you should really consider terminating your pregnancy because this changes everything. I remember pulling out my phone and showing her pictures of my daughters and telling her, these are my children and I love them with all my heart and I would give my life for them as any parent would give their life for their children. And I feel the same about this baby. I feel the same about this baby. I would lay my life for this child. We receive so many words from God, you know. Deuteronomy 30:19, I laid before you life and death. Choose life so that thou and thy seed might live. That's something that we stood on. That was his promise. So when we prayed, that was our supplication, that your promise, God, is that you would give life if we chose life.
But I can say that meeting with the St. Bernards on that September day was just so necessary. I, like my wife, was in need of prayer. We were in need of prayer. So, I put my arms around the backs of 2 of the people. And I believe that the gentleman in the parking lot ministry organically took a photo of that moment.
Yeah.
We didn't know that he had taken it until I think weeks later.
Probably months later. I didn't know until probably months later, and I saw that picture, and it was kind of amazing that not only did that moment happen, but that somebody that was completely foreign and to everything that was going on and had no idea managed to capture it and send it to us as a reminder, you know. But we had Maverick City Wait on You blasting when on April 7th around 4:00 in the morning, which happened to be Good Friday, just 2 days before Easter, I pushed and all I could do was scream, Jesus. That was the only thing that I could do, was push and scream, Jesus. And he came out. And it was a boy. We had 2 girls and we had our little boy. Sorry. And we named him Noah because he carried us through a storm. He had a promise through a storm. Sorry.
You just never know what people are going through. And we know that to be true, right? We know that to be true in life, but I know that to be true in ministry. Because we're in community, because we're in fellowship, we have others who are seeing us. And as Cheryl and Leonard were there, and while they were encouraged by us encouraging them, their simple showing up encouraged me on Sundays.
One of the ways that God continues to remind me that he's real and not like a up in heaven real, but like a flesh and blood in my life, day-to-day real, is through people, is through relationships. And so while I was, to be honest, wavering in my faith, like, God, how are we doing this? How are we doing cancer and a baby? And then to have met Cheryl and Leonard, it's been pivotal for me to have had their faith journeying with us. I could share praise reports with Russell, like, hey, I heard from Cheryl and this is how things are going, or she would send messages. And so it was just a beautiful space to be able to have each other, I think, in that journey to support and to build faith.
we made it through because of that community, because of that support, because of the prayers of the faithful. And I'm not sure where I would be, but thank God.